Welcome back to the Tree Surgery Podcast. Today, I've got Nick Wilson from the Line Arb. Welcome to the podcast, Nick.
Thank you very much. Yeah, nice to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. So you've been doing loads on social media recently, and we've connected quite a lot and talked quite a lot. So I really wanted to get you down for this podcast episode. So firstly, tell us, how did you get into the Arb industry and being a tree surgeon?
Wow, so that feels like a pretty long time ago now. First got into it. Well, my dad has been in the game for he's had his company he started in the mid-70s.
Wow. Okay, so he's seen a massive change in the industry over the last 50 years.
And he was an apprentice in state before that. So he's, been in it since day dot, really. And I've grown up around that my whole life.
Amazing.
Just been going to work with him and mucking in, building bonfires and dragging brash and climbing trees. And so I kind of got a lot of experience as a kid, and then properly got into it professionally when I was about 18, 19.
Yeah.
And worked with him for a year and a bit, and then went to college after that.
Yeah.
So
nice.
It was quite nice to get his experience and be sort of chucked in at the deep end, because he was quite keen to push me.
Yeah.
Before I went to college.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that I did it that way around, where I was turning up to college with guys that had never been on a site before.
You never touched a chainsaw.
Yeah.
And
I did the 10-week short craftsman course at Merrist Wood, and I felt quite comfortable. But what I got out of it was a sort of fresher experience of how the industry had evolved since Dad had been trained, and all the theory and the practical side of it. The theory and identification and scientific side of it, which I absolutely loved.
Yeah.
So that was sort of the start of it all, really.
Yeah, amazing. And so what did you do after you did that 10-week? Did you go and work for your dad, or did you go and work for other companies? How did it pan out from there?
So I went back to work for my dad, and obviously there's that bit of tension between in a family business.
I can relate to that.
You know, you've got dad saying you got to do it this way, and then they used to take the piss, college boy's been off and learnt a load of tricks, and now you come back and tell us how to do it. Which obviously I think that happens in every family business.
Oh yeah, you just met my dad next door, and and like we've never been in business together, but I've worked for him and under him a lot, and there's always been like, this is my way, this is my way or the highway, basically. Yes. And it's a challenging environment to work with family, because you've got a load of emotion involved as well. Not only have you got a high octane job, you've got all the emotion and history and all that kind of stuff in the way as well, haven't you?
Yeah, and you can push each other's buttons.
Exactly that. Great.
And the sort of personal life bleeds into family life. And whilst you're at the top of a tree, you're having a row about what happened in the kitchen this morning. So that was quite an interesting one. But I really, really enjoyed it. Actually, loved working with my old man and my brother as well. And we got on well, smashing out work quite nicely for about a year or so. And then I made a couple of really tight connections with my college mate, and one of them phoned me and said it was 2010 and Brisbane had just had a load of flooding in Australia. Massive sort of devastating storm, and he said that they're calling out for English climbers to go down and help the clear up, and he's going, and did I want to join? And I said, sounds amazing, but I'm going to go travelling first and I'll see you there.
Nice.
So he got in early and got full board car, like a nice wage packet, and fully set himself up. And I got in a bit later. I sort of went round, did Fiji, New Zealand, and then joined him after that, and managed to do a bit of work in New Zealand as well, and sort of pay for my board, and then hopped in and started work in Australia. So that's
nice. And how was that?
Loved it.
It's always something I wanted to do, and I filled in all the forms, and then I just never pressed the button and just never did it. And it's one of those things that I always think, like, I met a lot of Kiwi and Aussie climbers when I worked at City Suburban when I was in my early 20s, and they just seemed to have a little bit more like innovation when it come to climbing. And I remember they used to turn up, and I used to call it the bag of tricks, and they'd have like all these different cambium savers, and they started having different pulley systems and stuff, where I just like learned on a prusik basically. So how was it over there?
Well, it's the same, and I think I just massively leveled up. I thought I was quite a good climber before I went out there, and then realised I had to shut up and watch. Joining these crews was stuff that I'd never seen done before.
Yeah.
And I was sort of like back in the learning seat.
Yeah.
Which was great, you know. It was
great experience.
Yeah, just being chucked in with people that their level is so much higher than you, and then it gets boring otherwise, doesn't it? And
it does.
You don't improve.
Yeah, when I went to City Suburban, my mate Toby, who now works for me again, he said, I was a really good climber to the boss, and they put me in as a first climber. Yeah. And then after about 3 weeks, I got demoted to second climber because I just didn't I thought I was quite the same, thought I was quite a good climber. And then I sort of went up there, and that was that moment of going, okay, yeah, like I thought I was good. Yeah. I've been good running up trees, doing stuff I've been doing for Chris Orr before, but then I met all these Aussies and Kiwis, and it was exactly the same, and they were like almost another level of climber then, and learned loads.
I think the companies out there, certainly at the time, I don't know what it's like now, but they enjoyed employing European climbers because our standards and regulations are quite strict, and we get trained properly, and you know, all the sort of tickets and bureaucracy that you have to jump through was a good thing for them employing, because they know that they're getting a certain standard.
Yeah.
But actually the experience that you pick up there is a totally different game.
Yeah.
And we've got big trees here, but when you're doing big, massive stuff day in, day out, you just get a level of experience that you kind of get used to it more, and doing big rigging
and you put yourself out your comfort zone, and that's like anything in life, isn't it? The more you're putting yourself out of that comfort zone, your comfort zone grows. Then when you come back here, you're like, oh, this is quite small, this tree.
Yeah. And then obviously you're really confident, which is great. But I was listening to something about flow state before, where you need to be pushed. There needs to be a certain element of challenge for you to get into that state.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you just plateau, and it becomes boring, and then you kind of drift, and you're not really pushing yourself. And I think that was because you're switched on at work, and you're so engaged in like, I have to be good in this situation. I have to listen. I have to contribute. I have to be part of the team.
Yeah.
Otherwise, something could seriously go wrong. And I want to learn.
Yeah. There's no, like some of groundies I've experienced these days, everyone's staring at their phone. There's no time to be doing
that.
You
No.
can't.
I definitely didn't want to be like that, and just sort of saw the opportunity, and then travelled a bit in Australia and moved to a different company, and just fell in with the most great bunch of guys that I could have stayed. You know, really loved the culture there. But personal reasons came back, and went back to work with my dad, and loved it because I was sort of flying from the experience.
Yeah, you come back on some high energy.
Yeah, massively. And then felt that I could just do any job that was chucked at me. And just enjoyed kind of that phase of life. It was a bit of a funny time because I was sort of mid-20s and didn't really have any responsibility because Dad was still running the company.
Yeah.
I was just main climber with my brother, and it was like earn a bit of beer money and have some fun.
Yeah, nice.
And so that was kind of a sweet spot where I was working with my mates. We had a great setup, and there wasn't really any stress.
Yeah, nice.
And so I enjoyed that. And then Dad kind of started phasing out and just quoting, and then doing less and less of that, and passing more actual responsibility onto me and my brother.
Yeah.
And it was good. We sort of got on well, but you kind of, again, another sort of deep end experience of like, right, I know how to do tree work, but now I've got to manage people, and you know, even just talking to people on the phone and things like that. You don't get trained in that stuff. You just have to sort of take to it, don't you?
Exactly that. Yeah.
And then doing admin and things, and that's not my forte at all. It wasn't. So then there's another level up there, and it's okay, we're in a different game now.
Yeah. Which is kind of like, I think most tree surgeons, and certainly my experience was, I became a good climber. I learned, similar to you, I didn't go to Australia, but going to London and going and work from different companies, like learning from other people and what not to do and what to do. You become a good climber, and then I'm like, right, I want to start my own business. And you start your own business, and then we all get into tree work generally because we want to be outside, and then we then become business owners. And the first thing that we need to do, because we get so busy, is we've got to come off the tools. Then we then go into an office environment, and we're like, this is not our natural environment. It's not, and it's a challenge to go from high adrenaline outside. At the end of the day, you feel like an absolute king, especially when you've beasted some like top jobs, to then going sitting in an office and pushing a mouse around a screen. Like, that's huge adjustment, right?
Yeah. And I was sort of in the phase, because we were a very small company, and we didn't really need to try for work. my dad had been going so long, had a great reputation, and he was a really kind of community-minded person.
Nice.
So our work would just flow in, and like we didn't really have to push for that. So kind of sat on our laurels a bit there, and we'd go to work in the day and then get on the phone in the afternoon, evening, and have to go quoting and stuff, which I really didn't enjoy at all, especially when you're knackered and you're dealing with everyone's problems. Running around after people is very tricky. But to kind of keep that momentum as a small business, you can't employ someone to be in the office full time because it's that you can't afford that wage packet. But so there was that kind of phase that we went through, and I learned a lot. And then sort of personal life got in the way again, and I ended up moving to Germany and having my son. So I had a baby over there, and I was running the company remotely, sort of doing all the admin work, whilst my brother did the more sort of quoting and hands-on stuff. And we expanded to 2 teams so it could kind of afford the wage packet. And I was just basically office bound, but I also got some experience in working in Berlin. So I subbed out as a freelance client.
And how was it over in Germany?
It was good, interesting. I was learning the lingo, but got chucked in at the deep end massively, because this company, they're a climbing company specifically, and they did industrial and trees. And I didn't really like the setup of the company because it was quite, I think, sketchy way of working, where they'd sub you out as a single climber to a landscaping firm or a gardening company or something that had a true job to do.
So you wouldn't necessarily know if you got an aerial rescue or anything like that?
Nothing like that. But when you want the money, you do things like that, don't you?
I'm sure people listening to this podcast, there's a lot of people that have climbed without an aerial rescue in their time. So I think they've all been there.
And there's people on the ground, but then they wouldn't get you down if there was something that went wrong. But I remember sort of a language situation where I'm up the tree on one of my first days, and I've got these German guys shouting instructions at me in German, and I've got no idea what they're saying. And I phoned my boss, who was American, and I said, "Can you translate what they're saying?" And I got back on the phone, and he told me to cut the branch at that point. And,
wow.
It's quite funny. But that was good for a while. I'd done an IRATA course as well, so industrial climbing, and I wanted to progress that and do some more and more sort of building work. But because I was a good climber, they just kept me in that zone, and I didn't really get to branch out as a novice industrial climber.
And it's tricky with rope access, because a lot of the guys I've met that do rope access, they have another trade.
Exactly.
That's not tree surgery. It's another trade that is engineering or XYZ, which then they link together and then go and earn a good wage, work in a power station or something like that, right?
If you're an electrician or a welder or something, you can do really, really well.
And you can hang off the side of a building or some sort of structure. And
otherwise you end up cleaning things.
Exactly.
It's okay,
window cleaner or something like that. But but it's just trying to get the right wage right, isn't it?
That building's got the streakiest windows in town. That's one of mine. But so I just stayed with the trees over there, and it was good money for sure. But like I say, quite dangerous the way the company was set up, and doing sketchy things. Like, these guys didn't know how to rig anything, so I was rigging everything myself in the tree. And just, I thought, a young kid at home, there's really dodgy stuff that
kids tend to do that as well. I noticed as soon as I had kids, I thought I suddenly start. You got a lot more to lose, haven't you, when you get a kid? When you got a kid, when you're like young and dumb and just like up for it, you do crazy shit, and then you sort of, as the age starts to kick in and you start to respect life a bit more, and then get kids, you start to think about it a bit more, don't you?
Absolutely, it definitely changed my perspective massively. And that was kind of like the catalyst into pushing the English company a lot more. Sort of like, what am I doing messing around for €200 here and there and risking my arse? So I kind of thought, right, I'm going to actually take this seriously now, instead of resting on my laurels and just ticking over. And that sort of gave me this massive drive to push this home company. And we employed a consultant and went for Arb approval and Chaz, and tried to get accredited and go for the more commercial work. I was seeing a lot of my friends get ahead with commercial contracts and seeing, right, that's where you can earn some big lumps of cash.
Definitely.
And that's when you can make a difference in your world, isn't it?
100%.
You've got a nest egg, or you can put it into this, invest in that. So I thought, right, let's get into some commercial stuff, and let's just start putting the feelers out there with all my mates that were already in those circles, and got into a couple of sort of subcontracting environments where we weren't the principal contractor, but we were sort of starting to get into that world.
Which gives you the regular work, doesn't it? That's the thing. And
you
know, doing a bit of subcontractor work is it's like the stepping stone into the commercial world to work it all out.
Yeah, definitely.
Get some regular money coming in.
And massive upsides to it. I mean, dealing with one person instead of 60. You know, and they just want the job done. They've got a budget, and you need to go and turn up and do your job, instead of all of the kind of nuances of domestic.
Pricing millions of jobs, pricing against 5 other tree surgeons, and knowing you're not going to be the cheapest. And
everyone's the most important person on the planet, and you need to get there yesterday. That's stressful, isn't it?
It is.
And so I love that element of commercial where, we can actually have just a business conversation about some work, and it's a transaction. There's no like emotion in it. Which was great. But then you have the downsides of it where you're shelling out every day to go and do that work, and you're on like 30 days, 60 days,
90 days sometimes, and longer.
That's
the hard bit.
Transitioning from cash flow to none is difficult, and especially when you haven't the reserves to fall back on.
It's the hardest bit, and even now, 16 years on, it's one of the biggest things. We're constantly owed between 150 and 200,000. And it's on rolling, and it trickles in, and
you see that in the accounts, and you're just like, I just need that.
I need that now. And that is the difference between domestic and commercial, because domestic, you generally get paid on the day, the next day, and so forth. So whereas, as you say, commercial, we're paying for everything up front. We're paying for the wages, the fuel, all the kit now, and then we're not getting paid for 3 months or 2 months or a month.
And you're kind of going into a deficit, and you think, well, if it all came in, I'd only be at this level. And when's it actually going to tip the balance? And I think there's a lot of debate, and you probably cover this a lot with your mastermind course, of what's the sweet spot with number of teams and turnover and profit margins and things like that. And I was just sort of feeling around in the dark, really. And at the same time, you've got to build a reliable staff base. And my lads were so good and domestic, and loved domestic, and really took pride in their reductions and cleaning up, and they're amazing tree surgeons. And then I go and lump a load of boring commercial work, and it was good for the business, but it wasn't good for their morale. And keeping those great tree surgeons where they don't want to do that stuff, and stripping ivy and things. So they kind of like pulled back, rightly so. And then we got into the world of employment, where I was struggling with self-employed guys where, they had a lot of different things going on, and I was trying to nail them down because I have consistent work all of a sudden. And
the subby life is like, oh, can I get 2 days here, and can I get 3 days there? And you're like, and actually I'll text you the weekend before and say, I've got a few more days next week. And you're trying to plan weeks ahead, and it's really tricky, isn't it?
Massively. And then you get into the employment world where, okay, we're now sort of like interviewing for a longer term thing. And I was lucky, I found some really solid guys, but the actual financial side of that, I wasn't really preprered for, where your PAYE, pensions and everything,
PPE, the whole lot. It costs a lot of money to take one person on. Just if a new person walks in here tomorrow and we've got to get them all the PPE, climbing kit and everything, you're probably looking at like a couple of grand, $2.5 grand now, just to get them through the door. And then you've got to worry about whether they've got the right tickets to do the commercial work. It's just the continuous, and we share all of our figures with our team. And when we do that, they're kind of like, you see the guys' faces light up of like, wow, actually I see now how much it costs to run this business, because they think that most team members think your boss is a millionaire, and then they suddenly start seeing the profit and loss, and they're kind of like, oh wow, like it costs a lot of money to take one person on. So
definitely, I think I want to pay the guys as much as I can afford, but then you've got all of these hidden costs around just one person's wage packet. And so that was kind of obviously another element to take into account. But we pushed that. we moved yards and sort of really tried to really have a go at this sort of professional element of business. And it was good for a while. And then an opportunity came up, I think it was just after COVID actually, where we could move territory, we could expand our commercial contract area. And I thought, out of a bad situation, which was COVID, something good has to happen. And nice. I thought I saw that as it. And so we took the opportunity and moved to Wiltshire and set up another depot in Wiltshire, and found a little yard with some accommodation. And I was sort of splitting my time between both areas and trying to build a team.
And what was your original area?
In the south, so near Chichester, West Sussex.
Okay, so yeah.
So a couple of hours. I started steadily working on the yard, getting that all secure, and then contacting local workers and getting guys in for trial days and things like that. I had my team sort of splitting from the south and coming up to help as well. So they were staying in hotels and just trying to make a go of that area. And then what happened was that area became really busy and lucrative, and the work dried up in the south.
Yeah.
So I had the setup and the lads and the team and the office space and great yard, great kit in this area that wasn't making money.
Yeah.
And then we were supporting that from our sort of scale setup in Wiltshire. And so I was on the tools most days, and every bit of cash we earned was sort of going in to support the rest of the business. So that was going on for quite a while, and then the work dried up even more, and we're like, okay, this is getting serious now. It's a bit of a worry. And I'd never been in that position before where I was really worried about it.
Yeah.
And talking about wage packets, and these are people's lives you're messing with now, and you kind of feel guilty.
And the pressure is on.
Yeah.
It's hard.
You feel so much responsibility for
huge amounts of responsibility.
Yeah. And it's such a worry. And so we're kind of branching out, trying to get domestic back in, and like there's obviously a load of time commitment with that you've got to put into even win a few jobs. You can't just turn it on and off.
So. No, and it's the energy thing again. We talked about this on the phone the other day, didn't we? But like the way you place your energy tends to be where you get the results. Yeah. And then you've gone up to Wiltshire and put all your energy into Wiltshire, and then suddenly like the Chichester has started to dry up, and then you transition your energy back to Chichester, and then it's just trying to get that balance right. And that's kind of what we've done over the last few years. Is I put my energy away from the tree surgery business, helped growing other people's businesses, and then this year we had a tough year with our tree surgery business, and it's like, well, of course I did, because I put all my energy into the mastermind and building other people's businesses, and it's just trying to get that energy split right, isn't it?
Yeah, and you think you've kind of covered the base, I think, where okay, I've put some great people in great positions there, and they're good at their job and they can manage that. But anything, there's that saying, isn't it? Anything you focus on expands.
Yeah.
It's so true.
So true. Yeah.
So that was kind of happening, and the guys were looking at alternative ways. So they kind of coming off full-time contracts, going self-employed, and it was kind of, the cracks were appearing there. And we decided to close the southern depot and just solely focus on the Wiltshire area, because we were bang on the M4. We could get 360 coverage.
Which is when you're way down south on the coast like we are in Southampton, you lose half your coverage because it's sea.
Exactly, yeah.
or the Isle of Wight, which is no good to be going across there all the time.
We were going across there, and it's expensive, isn't it?
Yeah, it is expensive. Yeah.
But we were just driving up to London and Staines and Slough. And,
where you can get good money as well.
Yeah, but that's a 2-hour drive from the south coast. Yeah. All of those sort of wear and tear issues on staff morale and vehicles, and
and then burnout and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Anyway, so we decided to go double down on the Wiltshire area really, and make a go of that, and set up a little team and actually move in there full time, because we still had a flat in the south and we were sort of juggling. And that's when I really struggled with recruitment again. The guys that came in were good, but just stop-start with actually getting someone solid in there and reliable. And I got let down one day driving to work. So I'm by myself in the truck again. And it was all right, because we had the contract meant that there are engineers on site. So you could get, if you're working from the ground, there are other people there. It wasn't like you're in the middle of nowhere with no one else and you're using chainsaws. So I felt like it's all right.
Yeah.
Not ideal, but
you can get by.
And I sat there by myself in the truck thinking, there's got to be an easier way. You know, finding staff instead of putting the fishing lines out on Facebook or Indeed, and it's expensive, and other channels, and just getting Tom, Dick and Harry replying, and they've never had any experience and they just want to give it a go.
Oh yeah, the amount of people that apply and you look at them and they've been doing something completely different. They've been like metal fabrication or like cleaner or worked in McDonald's.
And you've got specific requirements that you're asking for, experience levels and certificates, even base rate. And I'm not knocking those people, because anyone that turns up with incentive and like they really want to push and learn, and they're the best people sometimes. But when your back's against the wall and you haven't got the time to train people, and you just want experienced guys to come in with a cross-cut ticket at least, just so they can wield a chainsaw, you need more than just your average kind of like roll-up labourer. And I suddenly had the idea that if there was an easier way of doing this, a platform where we could people could put their profiles up as workers and their certificates, their experience level, and I could just ping them off the map and call them, and we could arrange some kind of work date. That would be amazing, wouldn't it? And I sort of ruminated over this idea, and then went home and got in and told Izzy. I said I'd had an idea, and I always go in and say I've had an idea, and she goes, "Oh my God."
Sounds similar to my relationship.
What now?
Plenty of ideas.
What now? And she sat down and I told her, I think we should build an app. We'd saved up a bit of money with the contract work. There was a bit in there, and it was like that was going to be our deposit for a house. And I said, I've had this idea with the tree workers, with the recruitment side of stuff. And she was quiet, and I could see her thinking about it, and she went, I think that's such a good idea. What an amazing idea. And I was like, wow.
That was different to normal reaction.
That went well.
Yeah.
So then it was sort of game on. And that conversation, I'll always remember that conversation, because we were just pinging ideas off of each other, what we could do with this app.
Love it.
Where all of a sudden, all of the pain of running a tree surgery company, we could potentially help solve in a platform where it's not just recruitment. And we're going, right, what are the main pressures? Right? We're constantly dealing with waste.
Yeah.
We're constantly worried about safety. We're constantly dealing with breakdowns and kit and managing the equipment and inspections and things. So these became like the pillars of what we were going to work on. And then, 1,000 ideas just like flying around. And how do we even start thinking about building an app? We're not tech people, we're tree surgeons.
We're tree surgeons. What are we doing here?
Yeah, exactly. So just getting on the phone and like leaning into the network a bit. And well, I got some companies that ran up some quotes for us through a guy that I know, and astronomical prices, just crazy. And we got an opportunity through a friend's dad, saw the idea, loved it, wanted to support us, and hats off to them. They've been really great in getting this off the ground. Seeing our energy for it, they wanted to back us.
Yeah, nice.
And those guys were saying that there's a lot of ideas flying around. You know, everyone can have an idea. It's just, are they going to see it through, and is it a good idea? Really? Are people going to really kind of take to it? And because I'm not just a tech entrepreneur with an idea, I'm like the person that needs the problem solved.
Yeah, you know the problem, you've been in the problem, and that's like an entrepreneur if you look up in the thesaurus of entrepreneur, I'm sure it's got to say something about finding problems and solving them and monetizing it. And that's kind of like that's the way. It's picking out a massive need or problem point and then going, okay, how do we work this out?
And I kind of knew the concept was there with all the experience. You know, every company I go to suffers with these main core problems. So I knew it would work before we'd even built the thing. And so it's just a matter of how we go about that. And we found, like I say, the great tech company that were going to help us out and get this thing going. And we just sort of put pen to paper and started designing it and carried on with the business at the same time. And then we launched at the 2023, and it was a really nice experience, great reception. People have heard about what we're doing, and they just some of the responses were so great, where we're running through the features and people are going, wait, you're going to solve that problem and that problem? Oh my God, yeah, that thing's going to be better and that thing. And they're like, and where do I sign? Kind of thing, you know?
Nice.
Which, to have that sort of mirrored back to you of, there's real pain here and
we're going to help solve that.
Was
nice.
Amazing. But continuing along with doing tree work at the same time, so like you've just said, you know, with the break in attention, I really struggled with that for quite a while, where every day I was going to work on the tools, I was not focusing on this new thing that we'd created,
which is, and not getting the momentum that it needs and deserves to be a a game-changing app, right?
Exactly. And it was sort of, this thing has the opportunity, has the potential to be massive and really contribute and be our future, because I don't want to climb trees for the rest of my life. And this is using all my experience of the years. Because I was thinking, right, I'm now at this stage in my career, I'm mid-30s, and I don't want to climb trees for the rest of my life like my dad's done. But I either have to drop everything and retrain at the bottom to get a more sort of...
Which is, I think, a lot of tree surgeons find themselves in the same position, and people keep saying, you know, where do the tree surgeons go? And I think a lot of people, like Lee on the last episode said, he uses the analogy of, and I've used this too, of being a Premier League football player. You're going to be 20 to 35, 40 if you're Ronaldo and you really look after yourself, maybe a bit older if you can get through those 40s with your bones aching. But generally, you're going to get to mid-30s and everything's going to start aching. You're going to have kids, and like we were talking earlier, you're going to respect life more. And then you go, what do I do? And then people try, and I've seen it, people transition from being a tree surgeon into office, and they go, well, this, I don't want to do this. And then you find people, just good, skilled arborists, who leave the industry and have to go and retrain to be a chippy or rope access or whatever it is. And you kind of get to this crossroads where you go, well, I don't want to be in an office, but I still want to do something with my hands. And being a tree surgeon, I think it's definitely a challenge in the industry to try and keep that experience in there, right? And that's kind of the place that you got to. So a question I've got for you, do you think your dad being in the industry and him inspiring you in, was it always your dream to be a tree surgeon, or do you think you just got pulled into that because it was part of the family?
Yeah, it wasn't. No, I think it's a good question, because I think as a young kid, it probably was. And he put me off. He was saying, you don't want this.
You don't want what I've been through, son.
You don't want the long days, the aching back, and you know, the boots full of sawdust and that kind of thing. And I was looking at it as a young kid like, that looks awesome. Swinging around on a rope with a chainsaw.
And, how much fun is that?
Yeah, it's so much fun. And so I think I went through some different phases of, as a young kid, I definitely wanted it, and it looked great. And then I left school and did engineering for a couple of years and loved that, loved working with my hands. But then that was all sort of transitioning into computer controlled machining, which I didn't want to do at all. Like you're just feeding a machine and then cleaning up what the machine's done. So went back to the family business and took to it, just loved it. And I think my kind of entrance into career was working with my brother, my mates, and my dad. And we had so much fun.
Having that good click, that good, like, morale.
Oh, it's great.
And teamwork is, like, when you get to the team working well together, that's a buzz in itself, isn't it?
And I've done a couple of posts on it online about sort of comedy in the truck, and I've spoken about it in colleges to the college students about the morale at work and what your team is around you. And that's the best bit, I think. It's just so fun. And I had such a great experience with that early on. So it's not just about this amazing job that you're doing, which is really fun. It's about the people you're with. And so I think at that point it was like, this is great. And you're not really looking too far ahead, are you? You're just in the moment. So, sorry, I've sort of gone off.
No, it's good. It's good. It was just something that came up that I thought about in through that and where you've got to now. So you were in a position where you had the app and the business, and then sort of you got to a bit of a crossroads, right, with that of where to put your energy.
And I work with a good friend of mine who's a business coach, and we were having this discussion that actually it came off the back of watching an American football documentary. And these young guys that are wanting to go to the NFL and they have nothing. Like, they're coming from real poverty and it's do or die. You know, it's their way out. One of these young guys said, don't have a plan B because you will not commit to plan A.
Yeah.
And if all the time you've got a plan B, you've got a foot in the other camp and you're not committed.
Yeah.
And that really sort of resonated. And I was like, wow, all the time I'm stringing along half-assed tree surgery business, or like just keeping the sort of wolf from the door with a tree company. I'm not fully committed to the app, which is my future.
Yeah.
And so at that point I realized, like, I'm going to sell the kit and I'm going to go all in. And if it fails, it fails, but I've learned something and I've moved on with my life. Otherwise, I'm going to stay in tree work for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And at that point where you're running one team half a week, the kit's costing you money and there's insurance payments and things like that. And it wasn't economically viable either. So it just made sense. And we sold up everything, and a few little bits of kit to do family and friends trees, and I don't think any tree surgeon actually gets away from it in that respect. Always going to lend a hand, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly that. Well, I think it's a really smart move, because in the last 5 years since the rebirth of the tree surgery business, built it back up, and then suddenly the magpie that I am had ideas, and I started a property business, an Airbnb business. I then started the mastermind. Nice. And like I said earlier in the podcast, I think my attention then went away from my tree surgery business. I put a couple of managers in and it was great and we earned some all right money, but ultimately there's none of my energy going into the tree surgery business. And this year I think has been a tricky year for everybody, but it came apparent quite quickly that there was some cracks forming over the time that I wasn't putting my time into it. Yeah. And I think you're exactly right. And the analogy that the American football guy said is like, the only way that I see it being possible is you either build a business so it doesn't need your time in it. And it's like my Airbnb business. So Wayne, who you just met when you came in, he runs that all for me and barely takes any of my time, and it makes a small profit every month that we just put to one side, and I don't have to put any time into that. But if I had to put time into that, and I had to put time into tree surgery business, and I had to put time into the mastermind, then I'm just diluting myself and not pushing forward. I think it's a really smart move just to go, do you know what, this app, I believe in it, I'm solving problems, I think it's going to go places, let's just go all in with that.
Yeah. And this is being reflected back to us. We've done another ARB show this year and the APF, and it absolutely lights me up when someone comes in and goes, I've got my 2 best workers, my apprentice, I've found a tip site that's changed my business, this kind of thing, from our platform. It's making a difference to people's lives. And wow, that absolutely just gives me the fuel to carry on and keep working, keep grinding, keep pushing it. And I think what I really want to get across to people is that it's a journey. You know, the app is a developing product where I want people to stick with it. I know there's sometimes when you come across an app or a tool or something, it doesn't work, or there's a problem with it that you might not quite like or gel with instantly. If there's any of that, we want to hear about it. We want to fix it.
You want the feedback.
And it's not going to be this static thing, that doesn't work and put it down. It's like, right, what can we do to improve it? We can't keep our eye on every aspect of it at all times, and like tech is just the nature of it,
it's just constantly evolving, isn't it?
All the time. And it needs consistent updating and improvement, and everyone's home computer or laptop or whatever, it goes wrong at some point. You've got to have a little bit of grace for these things, and we want it to be in the pocket of every single arborist and be the problem solver. That's the main thing. Like I said, when we first sat down and had the idea, you can go in 1,000 different directions with this thing, but keeping it has to solve problems. It has to solve stress issues, making people less stressed, more money, more time, like bringing it back to that. And I love being able to empower action in these things where you're sat at home and you haven't got an option. What am I going to do? I haven't got anyone to work with me. Here's an answer. Here, you can be in action on that.
You can solve that problem.
Exactly just having a solution in your hands, where we want Greenline to be empowering action all the time.
Yeah.
So
Love that. And it's similar to like with me in the mastermind. I want to help serve people, more time, more profit, that kind of stuff. And I get it. And I've had different experience to you, because yours is an app that people see great value from. And I've had a lot of resistance with the mastermind, where we've been trolled quite a lot.
Okay.
But one of the biggest things that I don't think people quite understand mentorship and coaching, but one of the biggest things that keeps me in there is the messages I get regularly from the people that are on it saying, like, you've been on it, this has changed my life. Like, I'm now having more time. I'm now seeing my business grow. I've now grown from 200,000 to 800,000 revenue. Those kind of messages that I get, that's the thing that gives me the buzz, that knowing that all the time and effort I'm putting into building other people's businesses, helping them, that's the kickback. That's the enjoyment. You know, you can have all the material things in life, but when you're helping and serving people, that's when you start to feel that buzz from it, right?
Definitely, yeah. And it's what keeps you going, isn't it?
Yeah.
But even improving one person's life by a certain amount of percent, you know, if they can be less stressed, or we've got the emergency feature that could potentially save someone's life.
Yeah.
I talk about the infinite game. Have you heard about that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Where you don't win that game.
Yeah.
The goals aren't sort of attainable, like in a standard game where someone wins.
Yeah, well, it's like someone's not going to walk up to you and go, "You've just won business. Like, here's your medal. Well done. Like, you've won it." It's
constantly.
It's a continuous hamster wheel, quite often, of just like spinning all the time. Solve one challenge, the next reward for that is another challenge, and another challenge, and the next challenge, and like, hit me. What we got this week? What am I going to solve? Right?
Exactly. Yeah, and like if you've got a goal, for example, you've got a revenue goal or a turnover goal, okay, we can win that. But in terms of like saving a life, you can't put a price on that. It's the infinite game. If you're upskilling and educating a generation of arborists like you are, it's like that they're not really, you can't quantify that.
You can't.
That's the infinite game, isn't it?
Yeah.
So then you're playing at a totally different level of, right, our goals are just stratospheric here, and we can really, really make a difference to people's lives. So that is really a massive driving force in what we're doing. And I think just coming back to when we're in development meetings and things are difficult, or you're in the hurdles yourself of business, but coming back to how did I feel when I was a tree surgeon?
Yeah.
That pain, like being up all night, stressing about the next day, or getting that work in, or having that meeting with someone, or...
Well, I think that's just what makes a difference. And I think that's coming from my point of view, being able to understand running a tree surgery business, the pain points is why I created the mastermind. And just like you've created an app. And I think that if someone that wasn't Arb related came and tried to create an app, or tried to create a mastermind or a mentoring program, they'd really struggle, because they don't know the pain points. You've been through it all. You've sat there and had those nights, had those days, had the times on your own where you've not got an aerial rescue, etc., trying to find stuff. And I think that is the key to it, is the understanding what the day-to-day is like for most people in our industry, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And for someone to walk into that space and offer a business mastermind or an app for tree work, if you can't relate to the community that you're serving, then I don't see that there's like, you can't build on that trust level, you know?
Yeah, 100%. So just because some of our viewers might not, or listeners might not know your app, what are the main key features to the app?
So we have Waste Solutions, which is our drop point platform. So anyone, public or commercial, can sign up as a drop point for free on our portal, and that will post a drop point profile on the mapping system of the app. The app's built around a map. I realised that tree surgeons, practical people, they want to see things in front of them and be able to interact with it, instead of just sort of like listed directory information. Yeah, you want to be able to see things around where your area, the area that you're working. So the drop points get posted onto the map, and then you can sort of search out of area, or if you want to plan ahead on the days coming, or if you're on a site and you fill up, which happens a lot, you can find something low, run off, get rid of the waste, and keep the day rolling instead of coming back tomorrow. So Waste Solutions is probably our most sort of popular feature at the moment. And then recruitment, such a pain point, as we've spoken about. We've got a way of people showcasing themselves. So we call it the Find People app, where anyone, if you're a student or if you're a self-employed operator, you can put up a profile, be seen on the map that you're looking for work. You can specify your days, your qualifications, your experience, and that is just like your basic advert to be found by companies. And then the other side of that, the companies can be putting out their own adverts with job ads, which is about to get a fresh overhaul. So that should be coming out in the next few weeks, where we're giving companies way more sort of usability to showcase their setup and really like sell their companies to anyone looking for work, because I think that's a massive part of it, isn't it?
Yeah,
where
definitely.
What makes you different?
Yeah.
Why would I come and work for you? Than matey down the road?
Well, this is what I say to people all the time. They're like, "Oh, I'm putting ads out, and no one's coming to work for me." And I'm like, because all you're doing is listing every qualification that you need.
Yeah.
You're not talking about why you are specifically a good company to work for, because most people, they either love their job and they're being really useful, or they're sat on the fence and they're like, "I'm not happy here, but I'm not unhappy here."
Yeah.
They're the kind of people that you're advertising to, and most people, they don't know what the other company they're walking into is going to be like, what the boss is going to be like, how they're going to get treated, like what do they do for Christmas, what times they finish every day, what's the culture like what's the work like, all those kind of things, rather than just the old school way of listing every qualification and expecting someone to come and apply, because people just look at that and go, "Oh no, I don't have a first aid ticket, so I won't apply for that one."
Yeah.
And you can have a perfectly good person that doesn't have a first aid ticket, and they've just not applied for it, but they've not talked about exactly, like, you've just taken the words out of my mouth of what we do is talk around why you're a good company to work for.
Yeah, like, put yourself in their position. What do you want to see from a job ad?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a specific list of things here that I could have those certificates one day. I'm bang up for getting them. But what do I actually want to gain from this company?
Yeah.
What would I like to see? I'd love to know about who else works there and the feel of the company, and do you do team building events, and what kind of work do we do, and what kind of kit do we use, what opportunities to climb the ladder are there, all of those things. That's really engaging. I want to see a bit more of the culture and the people, and and connect with them on a human level, not just ping us a CV.
But then also that makes a difference between, there's a lot of companies that want, and I hate the word, operatives out there. That's what a lot of people want, is operatives. And you see that and you kind of go, that doesn't feel like a nice sort of company feel there. You just want essentially workers, operatives. Whereas you've hit the nail on the head there. You want a human to human approach, like people. Without teams, without good teams, you don't have a good business, because they're the people going out and making you the money at the end of the day. I'm not sat in my office, Mike's not going and doing the pricing, answering the phone. It's the guys, it's the teams that actually go out and make the money. And I think that's key, is having that human to human approach.
Definitely, yeah. So that's the overhaul in a nutshell of what we're trying to get through the recruitment feature. So waste, recruitment, then safety, and that has been developed. It's had its overhaul recently. We launched that a few months back, where we've worked closely with Danny from Merrist Wood, and he saw the original feature and was like, "This is amazing. This has real legs to be potential to be amazing." And it was quite basic, sort of location based, give you what 3 words grid reference before. Now it's a comprehensive emergency plan that you can do on site and share with your team and your office. And Danny's input there, from what he's putting out into the industry, he was sort of like, after every course, he'd supply everyone with a paper emergency plan, really stressing the fact that that's the most important document you can do on site. Because I think, and I definitely fell, to sort of victim. I was subjected to believing that a risk assessment is job done. And if you're doing one of them, even, like, you're doing pretty well.
Think how many people don't do them in this industry, right?
Yeah, so you're ticking a few boxes and you're getting to work, and you think, I'm working at a good level here. But actually, what happens when the shit hits the fan?
Well, firstly, adrenaline goes through the roof.
And
then people can't think properly. And that's the biggest thing. If someone genuinely interested, I saw someone get run over when I was about 14, 15, and the adrenaline was going so much. I phoned 999 and gave them my old address that I lived at a year ago, and then had to recorrect myself because it's outside my house.
Wow.
And I always say that to my team. Like, everyone thinks in the moment of, like, oh, I'm saying I'd be able to be crystal clear thinking.
But
when you've got someone hanging out a tree with blood pouring out of them, and adrenaline goes through the roof. You've got to be able to think clearly, and that is, like you say, where an emergency plan, a risk assessment, what 3 words, all that kind of stuff comes into its own. But I think people don't see that; they just see a tick boxing exercise, right?
Yeah. And I think understanding that you're not going to think clearly, and actually removing that stress of, okay, I don't need to think clearly, it's right here. Like, I can tap this button and I have the information, I can relay that to the emergency services, or get that person in the truck and we're going to hospital because we've got Google taking us right there with that button.
Yeah, amazing.
So we're saving valuable seconds there.
Yeah.
Where it could save a life.
Yeah, nice.
So that is another feature that we're really, really proud of, and the development team have just like absolutely knocked it out of the park. And it's no by means not finished. It's always going to be an improvement.
Yeah, but it's like everything. It's like you say, like, this is not a quick whip out an app and try and make money today. This is a long-term project. Exactly, it's like the mastermind, where what it was 3 years ago when we started was a Zoom call and a WhatsApp group, and it's evolved. And even now we've made some changes this year, and it's just the continuing evolving, of it. And that's like, it just shows with your commitment of going, right, I'm going to put my art business to one side and I'm going all in with this, and it will just keep improving from here, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So 4 key features. The 4th one is services.
Yeah.
And that is talking to your stresses around running your kit, your breakdowns and sort of inspections, and anyone in the network. When I moved away to Wiltshire, I realised that it's not just your workers and your customers that you need. There's a whole network of people that sustain an Arb business that actually took for granted, because I just knew everyone.
Yeah.
And my dad knew everyone.
You had that network built for 50 years.
Exactly, yeah. And you have all the phone numbers, and everyone's a mate, and everyone's done it before 10 times, so they know the vehicle, they know the chipper or whatever.
Yeah.
It was just easy. And then I moved location, and I'm sure everyone has some form of network, but I think it's one of those things that you can never stop improving. It's always going to get better, isn't it? The more and more you expand that network, I think you've got a safety net, and then you have more and more numbers to call, more and more contacts to support you in times of need. So that's the idea behind the services, that even if you're out of area, you can bring up a service list of, I just pinged a chain, I need some chain oil, I need some 2-stroke.
Yeah, nice.
And I didn't know there was an Arb shop around the corner. We are pushing that forward, where we're going to, currently all the services you see on the map, we've uploaded and we built the profiles.
Sure.
Worked with the companies. Now we're going to give them the power to maintain and promote their own profiles and build their own profiles out. So.
Which is ideal, because the amount of times we're out of area, we cover quite a big area. Being doing commercial tree work, you tend to then ask by your close commercial clients, can you just do a job here and can you just do a job there? And the amount of times that pops up, and then you're like, again, it's a whole new area that we're not working in. It's like an ideal solution just to be able to go, right, we need to go and get some more chain oil, or we need to go and get X, or we need to go and get Y. So smart. I like it.
Just so many times, you know this firsthand, like, job stops because we don't have this one little bit of kit,
and it's just money just being thrown down the drain every minute, every 15 minutes, every half hour.
Everyone's sat at work because we don't have a tuning screwdriver to tune that saw up and get the job done. It's just so frustrating, isn't it?
Yeah.
And when also big things go wrong, and like, I've had hydraulic hoses go on people's driveways, which costs you loads of money.
I've been there.
Yeah, and you got a cherry picker stuck in the ground's covered in hydraulic oil, and now you've got something to fix, and all the guys are stood around waiting. And you think, I don't know where to get a hose or who to call even. So that's the kind of idea there, where we can filter hydraulic services, we can filter Lola inspectors, which is another massive time thing. Everyone's kit needs lowering every 6 months, which rolls around in a flash.
It does. It's just relentless.
Yeah, and when we first released the app, what I didn't realise was there's so many loader inspectors out there that don't have websites.
And don't promote themselves.
It's word of mouth. And they've got a sort of their own network, but they want to branch out. They want more and more work. And now that's been a really popular feature for those guys because they can actually promote and be seen on the map and gain more business.
Love it. And I'm right in saying it's a free app for anybody in the industry that wants to download it and start using it.
Yeah, still free. We will be monetizing for certain features in certain areas.
Yeah.
The job ads there'll be a fee for putting up a new job ad.
Yeah.
Which is pretty standard.
Yeah.
We're not talking busting the bank.
No, but it needs to be monetized to be able to deliver the value that it deserves and be able to keep everything needs to have some sort of monetization around it to keep growing it and to keep building it.
Yeah, absolutely. It needs fuel.
Yeah.
And it needs sort of to keep that momentum behind it. So we've taken it to a level and now it needs to be taken to the next level.
Yeah.
We want it to really dominate and progress this in the UK, and then we'll be looking to sort of drop it into different app stores around the globe and
amazing,
move it into the Southern Hemisphere and everywhere there's big pockets of Arb work going on where they're doing it in a similar fashion to how we do it in the UK.
Which you've got loads, you've got the whole of Europe, you've got Australia, New Zealand, America.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah, and there's already lots of call for it. We get a lot of messages online saying, why isn't it here yet? Why isn't it here yet? And we just need to iron out the creases, really get it working properly.
And everything's scalable, but it's getting that ground base done first and then scaling it. Because people get too ahead of themselves sometimes, don't they? And then they try and scale something that's not quite ready.
Yeah.
And you want to make sure, because I know you from talking to you, you want to make a huge impact with this, right?
Massive.
So you get the foundations built and then scale is the next step.
It's so much bigger than me. And I really believe that this is the future of Arb, how people can communicate and solve problems through technology like that.
Yeah.
We bumped into quite a few people at the APF that said, no, don't want to talk about it. I've got my black book and that's fine. And we don't deal in apps. And so that's fair enough.
Yeah.
And I totally feel that. But if you can be open to maybe there's a different way of doing something that can solve a load of issues.
Well, there is a lot of people that get stuck in their ways, and I think that those generations are moving on, and younger generations are coming through who do want to solve problems quicker and see the value in just going from A to B the quickest possible way and not having to go to C, but they can just go from A to B.
Yeah,
and that will come through to fruition for sure.
Yeah, and there's so much evidence to say that the old ways of doing things are going to be dead.
Yeah,
and everyone's working off their phones these days, aren't they? And using AI more and more.
Yeah, AI is huge.
And so,
like anyone not using AI in their business, even their tree surgery business, is going to get left behind. And people are like, how do you use it in a tree surgery business? I mean, I did a masterclass to all our guys in the mastermind the other day, and everyone's just like, wow, this is going to save me hours.
Yeah.
Like people get afraid of these things. And if you like the way I see any technologies, if you don't embrace it, you're going to get left behind. And that's the way. It's a simple fact is that all these apps, AI, everything, if you can use it to, as you say earlier, to save you time, make you more money, then why wouldn't you do it?
Exactly, it comes down to being a tool, and people are scared of AI, and there's a lot of sort of anxiety around it, but actually it's nothing without the human element.
It's the ingredients you put into it to what you get out the other side of it, and you've got to put the ingredients in and you get out what you put into it, don't you?
And it's the same with the app. We need the people interacting with it, we need the community to make that platform really sing, and I think that the sort of possibilities are endless with it, and obviously the global market's there, but it's going to be a sort of phased thing for us for sure. But I'm definitely sort of getting my head around that Greenline is, I think, removing the fact that it's not me as a business, I think people get hooked into their identity as their business.
They do, very much so, agree.
I need to get out of its way and drop my anxieties or insecurities around promoting it and just let it flow, because why wouldn't you?
Well, I think you relate to this, and I think most business owners are the own bottleneck in their business. Most business owners are very good at starting business because we've got the ideas, like we say earlier, we've got the magpie thinking about the shiny things, and then we end up being a bit of the bottleneck. But the fact that you've got that self-awareness and you're looking to grow something big will help you step to one side in a sense and build that team that it needs to take it off, because it is a lot about us. We're very good at creating and solving the problem, and then you kind of need a team around you to help you take it to the next level.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. No, definitely.
Cool. So if people want to download it, what we'll do is we'll put the link into the bio of this on YouTube and onto the podcast. Before we go, I've got a question for you. Knowing everything you know in the industry now, if you were starting out, if you'd been maybe a few years into the industry, or you're wanting to start your own business in the industry, thinking about everything you've learned up to now, what would you do differently?
So it would be understanding people.
Yeah.
More. I think you can understand trees.
Yeah.
Until, the cows come home.
Yeah.
But absolutely being able to develop a company.
Yeah.
And progress a business. You don't get trained in understanding people, how to talk to people, how to sell, how to manage teams and lead. I think developing yourself in those areas where you become a leader, a salesman, a sort of agony aunt, all of these different hats you wear as a leader, as a company owner. If I went back and had training in those places, or even been aware that I wanted to learn these things, I would have saved myself so much stress and anxiety. And I really struggled with sort of trying to overthink and control things, and I absorb everything, all the stress, and it would keep me up all night. And I just being detached, understanding people, and sort of having more perspective on what it is we're doing and how we want to be in our roles and how we want our companies to grow and feel. I think that would save me, and I would be so much further than I am in my tree company if I'd had that perspective from day one. And I'm sort of a little story around, I'm not going to name names, but I have good friends that get very, very stressed out with their companies, and we talk a lot, and it's a perspective thing. And you shift the perspective of things are happening to me. My happiness hinges on these external factors, and these circumstances of life. Yeah. And it's such bullshit. It's like, no, if you're looking at it in life is going to chuck you around.
Yeah.
If you constantly pin your happiness on external things that happen to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the job went well today. I'm really happy. Yeah. Next day, the truck broke down. I'm miserable.
Everything's smashed to pieces. Miserable. Yeah. I want a contract. Happy. Next day, got no money in the bank. And I think that's a real challenge to take the business hat off. And I think that's even like, I call it circuit breakers. On the way home from work, I will do a circuit breaker sometimes, which is like go and meditate in a car park or in a lay-by for 10 minutes, or go for a run, or go. I mean, I used to be go for a beer down the pub, but then that just ends up in quite a spiral. But you need those circuit breakers then to be able to then go home and turn up as a dad or a partner or whoever you need to be in that life, because we wear that business hat so much, and it's a real tricky thing to be able to break yourself away from the grind and when things are going well and bad, to not just live that on your sleeve, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think if I was to do things differently, and you see how much stress and the job bleeds into the rest of your life, and how you're turning up as a dad and as a partner and all of those things, and as a friend, how much just cutting lumps off trees affects the rest of your life, because it does. It just, if you make it you and you're rolled into the work and it's your identity and you're so attached to it, it's just going to rule you, isn't it?
It will do.
And I think going back to the question, if I was to start again, or the bit of advice I'd give myself in the beginning would be to just zoom out.
Yeah.
And full commitment and full detachment. You can operate in a way that's like, I'm fully committed to this project, but it doesn't mean anything about who I am.
Yeah.
And a perspective shift.
I agree, and this is something me and my wife talk about at the weekend, because we've had many highs and lows over the last 16 years in business, and quite often I'm quite harsh on myself, and the perspective that I give myself is, I always say, me and my wife were saying this the weekend, that if I was to ask the 16-year-old self who had just left school, failing all his GCSEs, who got the most likely to go to jail award, and I'd said, right now I've got a house, 2 kids, I run 3 businesses, we make a nice amount of money. If someone had said to me when I was 16 that you have all that, I would have gone, I'd have bitten their hand off.
Yeah.
And that's my way of putting my life in perspective, because sometimes when I'm in the middle of it still, I'm still going, it's not good enough. I'm not further. I've not got more money in the bank. I've not got more material things. It's all material stuff.
Yeah.
I've not got X, Y, Z because everyone's got this on Instagram and all that kind of stuff. And I think you're right, zooming out and actually going, do you know what, you're doing all right? Like, you're actually, you're creating commerce, you're employing people, you take stock. And some of the most profound people I've met in my life are very successful, wealthy people who have now retired, who say to me, Henry, the bit that you're doing now, which is the fun part. And you go, but it doesn't feel like fun some days because I'm in the middle of it and I'm stressing because the van's broken down again and all the things we talked about.
Yeah.
And actually, we are in the middle of it right now at the age we are. We are in what we will look back in when we're sat on our rocking chair, if we make it that far, and look back and go, they were the good old days. But when you're in it, you don't necessarily see it that way, do you? So you're thinking, okay, this is broke, etc., etc. So yeah, I love that answer.
And that's a zoomed out perspective of, okay, when I look back, when I'm going to take stock, and this is the fun days, like, okay, now I get to choose who am I going to be in that moment of, the shit's hit the fan, but am I going to be an arsehole about it, or am I going to be like coming at it from a different perspective? I'm going to be sound to all my workers because it's not their fault. We're just in it together. And then you look back and you go, I was really proud about how I dealt with that, or I learned from that issue. We all make mistakes, don't we?
We do. And you're right, the team is the most important thing. And I think if I had my time again, I'd have focused a lot more on the team, because without your team, you're nothing. Like, you can't run a business on your own. No. A lot of people try and do it, but it's impossible. You need a team, you need people, you need other people in your business to take away the day-to-day stress. So I mean, it's been a fantastic interview today. I really enjoyed it. I have always been pro the Green Line app, and we will share it high and wide, and hopefully you'll come back again and do another interview in the future, and we'll have some more news and updates and things. Have you got any final words you'd like to say to our listeners?
Well, I'd just like to say thanks for your support, really. I think we hear a lot about Green Line throughout the community and the good it's doing in everyone's lives. And I'd like to say thank you to the amazing arborists in the UK. They do such a good job. We get a bad rep at times, but people are really contributing to this industry.
It's a great industry.
It's amazing. And I love being a part of it from a different perspective now. I'd like to say thank you very much to yourself. And I really see everything you're doing in the industry as well. And I think it's amazing how you're supporting and growing people and developing people. I think it's great. And really appreciate you inviting us down today. So thanks.
Great interview. Really enjoyed it. Thanks all for listening. If you enjoyed today, please go and follow Nick on the different social media platforms. Go and download the Green Line Arb app straight away if you're not already using it. And if you've enjoyed this episode, please like and share it, and also subscribe, because we'll be having plenty more of these episodes coming up in the future. Thanks all for listening. Take care.